Laugh, he said, pointing the remote at the screen like he was about to execute us. I was mid-sip of lukewarm breakroom coffee when his daughter's TikTok started playing on the conference room TV. 30 excruciating seconds of her doing a choreographed dance in a neon bikini to some butchered remix of Take On Me, complete with fake tears and a ring light seizure in the background. I blinked once, twice. Around me, grown adults chuckled on cue, like trained seals with mortgages. I didn't. CFO Randall, the man who once yelled at an intern for using 12-point font, looked directly at me, his lip twitching like he'd just caught a fart in an elevator. Not amused, he said, tilting his head fake jovial. Figured someone in your position could appreciate young creativity. I gave him a polite shrug. She's expressive. That was it. No aplausos. No groveling. Just a hint of decency left in my soul. 15 minutes later, I was back at my desk when I got the Outlook notification. Change in role scope, effective immediately. I didn't even need to open it. By the time I stood up, the whispers had already started in the adjacent cubicles. She didn't laugh, someone muttered, and I almost laughed then. Almost. But I was too busy watching the IT guy delete my folder access like it was just another Tuesday. Randall strutted by with the HR gremlin in tow, pretending this was all a routine reorg. We're decentralizing redundant functions, he declared to no one in particular, but everyone knew. I'd handled compliance workflows, reconciliations, audit prep, the dry stuff that kept the feds off our backs. Now it was all stripped from me like I was a damn intern who forgot to CC someone. He didn't even have the balls to speak to me directly, just nodded like a game show host handing me a lifetime supply of go screw yourself. My new role was a Frankenstein hybrid of admin support and project tracking. I was supposed to smile and take notes in meetings I used to lead. I walked out that day with my jaw clenched and my dignity trailing behind me like a torn pantyhose. But I didn't fight it. I didn't plead or scream or go to HR. I started forwarding emails instead. Every late audit reminder? Forwarded to Randall. Every compliance deadline ping? Forwarded. Every flagged transaction? Every policy check-in? Every request from legal? All his now. And while he ignored them, I watched. Not out of spite. Not at first, but because sometimes silence is the loudest weapon you've got. Real quick, 97% of people listen to these stories without subscribing. If you're enjoying this one, take 2 seconds to like the video and hit subscribe. It really helps the team keep bringing you more. Because what Randall didn't realize in his smug little bubble of delusion was that I didn't need revenge. I just needed gravity. And it was already pulling. Slowly. Relentlessly. The thing about a paper trail? You only need to start it. The weight builds on its OWN.BY Friday. I had converted my inbox into a compliance boomerang. Anything with even a whiff of obligation? Straight back to Randall with a subject line, so clean it could be framed in a courtroom. Per updated delegation of responsibilities. I made sure every email sounded helpful, respectful, and just uncertain enough to cover my own ass. Hi Randall, just confirming whether I should proceed with the Q4 reconciliation prep or defer to your review, per the revised reporting structure. Let me know, thanks. He didn't respond. Didn't stop me from forwarding the next one. Flagged discrepancy from vendor payout 2817. Auditor requested clarification. Looping you in to maintain compliance continuity. Let me know if you'd like me to assist. Silence. I knew that silence. It was the sound of someone mistaking a bomb for background noise. See, Randall believed his new job, my job, was ornamental. He thought it meant sitting in meetings, using phrases like strategic alignment, while sipping bottled arrogance. But compliance isn't a trophy. It's a ticking clock. And I just handed him the keys to a clock factory with no instruction manual. By the second week, I had a system. Anything tagged regulatory, SOX, FASB, or audit prep, out it went. Always polite. Always logged. Always CC'd to the shared folder that time-stamped everything. I wasn't hiding. That was the beauty of it. I was doing exactly what I was told. No more, no less. He wanted the spotlight. I gave him every lumen. There was a strange kind of peace in it. Like flipping off a tornado from your basement. Co-workers would glance at me in meetings like I was radioactive. Demoted but not disgraced. They didn't understand how calm I was. How still. Because they didn't see what I saw. The slow leak in the hull. The emails he was ignoring. The subtle shift in the way legal started pinging questions to the wrong person. And getting no reply. I wasn't trying to sabotage him. That's the part people never get. I didn't twist any knives. I just stopped catching the ones he tossed in the air. One by one they began to fall. Every signature he forgot to give. Every audit checklist he left unread. Every reminder marked unread or buried under meeting invites with people he wanted to impress. I cataloged it all like a librarian in a burning building. No fireworks. No rage. Just the slow grind of inevitability. And every night I left work, I didn't walk out angry. I walked out lighter. Because the trap wasn't baited with rage. It was lined with paperwork. And Randall? He was already waist deep and sinking. The first real crack didn't come with a bang. It came with a chirp. Gentle reminder, the email subject line said, from our external auditors. I opened it, read the friendly follow-up about overdue access logs and Q4 variance reconciliation, and did what I'd been trained to do. I forwarded it. Same format, same wording. Randall, looping you in for visibility and next steps as per revised role assignment. He replied once. Just once. This looks trivial. Don't waste my time with clerical nonsense. Trivial. That's what he called the thing that 6 months earlier, he'd praised me for keeping spotless ahead of last year's audit. Our cleanest review in a decade, his words, not mine. But now that he was the one holding the clipboard, the details became noise. I archived his response. No emotion. No sarcasm. Just another shovel of dirt onto his own future. A week later, another reminder landed. This time flagged second notice. The wording was still friendly, but the smile behind it was wearing thin. Auditors don't shout. They just escalate in layers. And Randall? He was too busy preparing a vision alignment workshop for the board to notice he was already on the verge of violating SEC deadlines. Meanwhile, in the trenches, people noticed. It started with small things. Janine from payroll asked me, quietly, if I was still reviewing payment batches before they went to Treasury. I told her truthfully, that's no longer part of my role. Her face didn't move, but her eyes did. Quick dart toward Randall's glass-walled office, where he sat hunched over a spreadsheet, earbuds in, probably listening to one of those fake productivity podcasts where billionaires talk about grind sets while flying private. Then came Max from procurement, asking if anyone had approved the updated vendor forms. I said I wasn't sure who handled that now. He nodded slowly, too slowly, and left without another word. It was all whispers at that point. Soft confusion. The kind that doesn't ring alarm bells, but hums beneath every conversation like a bad frequency. Slack threads started dying mid-response. Calendar invites stopped going out. No one wanted to be the first to say it, but they all felt it. Something was off. Randall still hadn't responded to the auditors. He'd skipped the bi-weekly compliance sync. Twice. And when legal sent a note asking for updated policy certifications, I just forwarded it again. Same format. Same fake helpfulness. Randall, flagging for your awareness per updated delegation. Let me know how you'd like to proceed. No reply. I watched it all unfold like a ghost at her own funeral. Invisible but oddly liberated. My face gave away nothing. In meetings, I took notes. Smiled when spoken to. Drank my Sophia. Watched the CFO pretend he was building something while the structural bolts quietly rusted in his inbox. I wasn't sabotaging a damn thing. I was honoring the chain of command. And the chain? It was starting to snap. Compliance is important, Randall said, waving his hand like he was swatting a mosquito. But let's not pretend filling out the same 3 forms every quarter is what drives innovation. I watched from the end of the conference table as he clicked to the next slide. A PowerPoint monstrosity titled, Efficiency Through Elimination. The screen was cluttered with bullets about lean ops, process trimming, and something called frictionless finance, which sounded like a TED Talk given by a guy selling crypto from a hot tub. He looked proud of himself. Smug even. His arms crossed, voice syrupy with charisma. We're not here to serve process. We're here to serve progress. He actually said that. Like he was Moses coming down the mountain with stone tablets that said screw documentation. A few team members nodded. A few others glanced at each other. I just took notes. I always took notes. Quietly, methodically. It gave me something to do while I kept my expression carefully neutral. Poker-faced. Flatlined. Because on the inside, I was grinning like the devil on a slow boil. He kept going. These audits, he said, pacing now, arms open like a game show host. We spend thousands of man-hours every year chasing our tails. I say, cut the fluff. Trust the team. Focus on value. More nodding. A few cautious chuckles. He was performing, and they knew it, but they also knew better than to challenge him. Randall didn't like dissent. He liked applause. And here's the thing, on paper he sounded bold. Disruptive. That's what gets attention in boardrooms, right? Visionary leader breaks through red tape to drive growth. But under that glossy headline was a rotting foundation. Because all that fluff he dismissed, that was the firewall between this company and a federal fine the size of his bonus. He talked about saving money, cutting overhead, streamlining workflows. He didn't mention that the last person he asked to streamline was now sitting quietly at the far end of the table, forwarding every accountability-triggering email straight to him. Fully documented, time-stamped, and untouched. One manager raised a hand and asked, cautiously, "Are we still filing the Q4 reconciliation addendum?" Randall waved him off. "We'll handle it if it becomes an issue." If. That word did all the heavy lifting in the room. If it becomes an issue. Like the laws of finance and federal oversight were optional, provided you wore enough cologne and spoke in LinkedIn buzzwords. Behind my calm exterior, my mind was already calculating the next fallout point. The auditors hadn't escalated publicly yet, but they were close. And Randall was up here treating compliance like a seasonal allergy, annoying, ignorable, and definitely someone else's problem. He didn't realize he'd become the problem. And as he clicked through another slide about centralizing strategic command, I leaned back just enough to see the reflection of the screen in the window behind him. It looked like a warning label on a bottle of snake oil. I kept my mouth shut. He wanted to lead? I'd follow. All the way to the cliff. By the third week, the silence had a pulse. It was in the way the air shifted when Randall walked into a room. Less swagger now, more friction. The jokes landed flatter. His metaphors got stranger. One day he said we were a rocket ship strapped to a cheetah chasing a tax refund. I didn't even blink. Just clicked forward on another email flagged, urgent, federal compliance review. The messages were changing. No more gentle nudge or kind follow-up. Now they came stamped with dates, deadlines, and phrases like non-response will be documented and failure to comply will result in escalation. The auditors weren't circling anymore. They were landing gear down. But Randall? Still silent. His inbox must have been a war zone by then. 20, maybe 30 red flag threads stacked one after the other. All with my neat little note at the top. Looping you in per updated responsibilities. Let me know if you need support. Every message signed, every timestamp logged. The guy could have built a bonfire with the warnings I'd handed him, but instead, he let them rot like fruit in the sun. He'd started closing his office door more. The glass wall blurred by the fog of his own hot breath and whatever crisis he was pretending didn't exist. His assistant, Tessa, looked like she was aging in dog years. She used to wear bright cardigans and chirp "good morning" to the whole team. Now she barely made eye contact. I saw her once in the kitchen just staring at the coffee pot, like it held the answers to life. People were noticing. Not just the whispers anymore, actual concern. Mark from Treasury asked me in a hushed tone if I'd seen the latest compliance tracker. I told him I was no longer looped into those updates. He frowned and said, "Huh, weird. No one's touched it in weeks." I said nothing. It was all unraveling exactly how entropy likes it. Slowly, then all at once. One afternoon, I caught a glimpse of Randall at the printer, face pale, lips pressed thin. He pulled out a stack of papers and shuffled through them like a gambler reading bad cards. His hands weren't steady. He looked older, smaller, like the weight of what he didn't do was finally starting to sit on his chest. And the best part? I didn't have to say a single word. I wasn't the villain here. I wasn't sabotaging, leaking, whispering, or grandstanding. I was just visible, present, clocking in, clocking out, repeating my one quiet ritual. Forward, CC archive. It was like watching a dam crack from the inside, feeling the pressure build with every unchecked box, every unsigned form, every forgotten reply. The storm was close now. You could feel it in the carpet static, in the way people avoided eye contact in elevators, in the pause between emails sent and emails answered. Randall had built his throne on ego and inertia, and now both were crumbling. And still he said nothing. Perfect. Let the silence do the screaming. IT landed on a Tuesday morning, 9:07 a.m. to be exact. The kind of overcast morning that already felt like something was brewing, like the weather and the walls both knew something before we did. Randall strutted into the office with his usual too loud laugh and a venti cold brew, humming whatever corporate garbage passes for music in his head. 10 minutes later, Tessa stepped into the conference room during our weekly status meeting and handed him a letter. Not an email. Not a Slack ping. An actual physical, thick white envelope, the kind that doesn't carry birthday cards. She looked rattled. He gave her that tired smirk he reserved for women who didn't amuse him, and opened it right there at the head of the table, like it was a lunch menu. I watched his eyes. They didn't move across the page so much as freeze, like a mouse realizing the cheese came with a trigger. His face drained just slightly, not enough for the oblivious to notice, but I saw it. The way his throat tightened, his jaw clenched, his left hand gripped the table just an inch tighter. He blinked, folded the letter, and set it down as if it hadn't just detonated a landmine beneath his Gucci loafers. Well, he said, forcing a grin, just the usual government overreach. They're behind on their own audits and now they want to rush ours. His voice was light, dismissive. Performance mode. He shrugged. I'll circle back on this. Let's keep going. Q1 forecasting, who's got it? Nobody moved. The air had changed. A few folks glanced at me, like maybe I'd give them a clue. I didn't. I just took notes. Calm, steady, detached. Because I already knew what the letter said. I'd seen its kind before. The phrasing never changed. Imminent non-compliance detected. Failure to submit required filings by deadline will result in escalation. Not a suggestion. Not a warning. A throat clear before the guillotine. The team fumbled through the rest of the meeting, voices subdued. No one dared ask questions. Randall nodded too fast. Laughed too loud. Tried to pivot to quarterly wins, but his hands never left that folded letter. He tapped it absent-mindedly, like a stress tick. I watched the tapping. 1-2 pause. 1-2 pause. Like he was trying to Morse code his way out of accountability. After the meeting, he vanished into his office. Didn't say a word to anyone. Just slipped behind that glass wall and shut the door with more force than usual. I walked by an hour later. He hadn't touched his coffee. That alone said everything. I paused at the copy machine across from his office, pretending to need toner. Through the glass, I saw him hunched over his keyboard. Phone to his ear, voice low and tight. Probably calling legal. Maybe the auditors. Maybe some miracle worker in his LinkedIn Rolodex who owed him a favor from Burning Man 07. But no favor was going to fix this. He was past the threshold now. This wasn't a matter of oversight anymore. It was documented, sealed, and delivered. And it all pointed back to him. Every missed deadline. Every unanswered thread. Every forwarded email with his name at the top, and his inaction logged in the metadata. He thought I was the joke. Thought demoting me in front of the team would prove he had teeth. But now? The jester's crown sat firmly on his own head, thorns inward, smile slipping. And me? I just kept watching. Silent. Still. Because the punchline was coming. The first board inquiry came in quietly, just a short email forwarded from Randall's executive assistant, flagged discussion item for Thursday. The subject line. Audit timeline irregularities. 2 sentences. Polite. Professional. Deadly. Randall didn't react publicly. He never did. But you could feel it, his cadence changed. Less of that slow, smug drip he liked to deliver in meetings, more clipped phrases, more rushed conclusions. His usual performance, gesturing toward growth charts and cracking jokes about bean counters, got tighter, more brittle, like someone pulling on a thread that was already unraveling. Thursday's board meeting was virtual. Cameras on, suits in little boxes, all of them radiating that white-collar suspicion that smelled like lavender cologne and liability insurance. Randall opened with his usual confidence. "We've had some minor turbulence," he said, nodding like he was updating a flight crew. "Just temporary bottlenecks in compliance reporting. My team's a little behind, but we've got it covered." My team. His team. The same team he'd gutted 6 weeks ago when he told me I was better utilized elsewhere. The same compliance infrastructure he'd dismissed as bloated and redundant. Now he was clinging to it like a life raft made of shredded tax codes. There was a beat of silence. Then one of the board members, Carolyn, sharp as a guillotine and twice as fast, leaned forward in her frame and asked, "And what precisely is the holdup, Randall? Last year we were ahead of schedule. This year we're dancing with breach territory." Randall smiled. But it was the kind of smile you see on a man trying to hold in a scream. "There's been some lag in the chain of execution. We've had some handoffs, a bit of churn. Transitions take time." "Handoffs?" Carolyn said. "Team turnover," he replied quickly. "We're training up some fresh talent. It's a growing pain." No one looked at me. No one had to. They knew. Every person in that call remembered the restructure, remembered the smug announcement, remembered the way Randall had stood there, chest puffed out, as he cut through the org chart with a red pen like it was a goddamn art project. Now he was pretending that team still existed. Another board member, Singh, chimed in. "Did the previous audit lead transition out?" Randall hesitated. "Just long enough. We realigned some roles. Strategic reallocation. It's under control." And then it happened, so subtle but so sharp. I shifted. One box on the screen at a time. Just glances. But they landed on me. The demoted compliance officer. Sitting 2 rows back in the conference room with a legal pad and a blank expression. Not speaking. Not flinching. Just there. And that's when I felt it. The turn. Because silence in those rooms is currency. And when no one defends you, when no one jumps in to nod along, when no one echoes your spin, that silence becomes an indictment. Randall wrapped the meeting with vague assurances and a promise to deliver a full timeline breakdown next week. He signed off, took a breath, then slammed his laptop closed like it had betrayed him. I stayed behind a minute longer, pretending to jot something down. Through the glass, I watched him rub his temples, jaw clenched, eyes staring at nothing. He knew. They all knew. And now the pressure was on. Real pressure. Not a bad quarterly number, or a tense investor call. This was structural, legal, paper trail pressure. And the man who'd smirked at my supposed irrelevance was now sweating under the weight of tasks I used to complete before my second cup of coffee. The net was tightening. And everyone could see it. The emergency board meeting was set for 8 a.m. sharp. No preamble, no pleasantries, just a terse calendar invite marked mandatory. Audit response review. The kind of subject line that made even the VPs double-check their suits and show up 10 minutes early. I was there too, of course, notebook in hand, eyes neutral, posture perfect. The ghost in the machine. No one had asked me to attend, but no one dared ask me to leave either. Randall was the last to enter. He looked like he'd jogged there from a tax shelter. His collar was wilted, sweat darkening the edges, and his skin had that pale, waxy hue of someone who's just realized the rules of the game have changed. And he's no longer holding the dice. In his hand, a sealed envelope. Thick. Off-white. No branding. Just that federal tone you can feel in your molars. The room was silent as he sat. He didn't speak right away. Just set the envelope down like it was radioactive. Took a long sip from his water bottle. And glanced around the table with a forced smirk that fooled no one. "I've got the latest from the auditors," he said. Voice trying too hard to sound casual. Bit of an overreach, honestly. Bureaucracy doing what it does best. No one laughed. He reached for the envelope, fingers stiff, tore the seal like it might bite. I could hear the paper crinkle from my seat 2 rows back. The boardroom was deathly still. No keyboard clicks, no phone buzzes, just breathing. Watching. Waiting. He unfolded the letter and began to read. The first sentence hit like a fist through drywall. Following multiple unanswered notices, our firm has determined the company is in systemic breach of federal compliance procedures as a result of executive-level inaction and sustained negligence. Randall stopped. Just stopped. His lips moved like he wanted to read ahead silently before continuing, but his throat had locked up. His eyes darted back and forth across the page, scanning for an escape route that wasn't there. His face went slack, color draining so fast it looked like someone had pulled a plug behind his ears. He looked up, barely, and tried to speak. Teach this, they're overstating. Keep reading, Carolyn said. Cold. Flat. He looked down again, forcing the words out now, each one like a pebble caught in his throat. The letter outlined everything. Missed deadlines, failure to respond, unresolved discrepancies in the Q4 logs, lack of documented remediation plans. And worst of all, direct attribution. Every task, every email, every responsibility had been reassigned to his name. The paper trail I'd left was now a noose, and it was tightening with every word he read aloud. I didn't move, didn't blink, just sat there, calm and composed, invisible in plain sight. A non-threat, a non-voice, just a presence. And yet they all knew. Every person in that room understood the shape of what had happened. How one man's ego had turned process into ashes, how the quiet one had held the line, and how that line had been severed at the source. When Randall finished reading, the silence didn't come from shock. It came from confirmation. This wasn't new to them, it was just official now. Signed and sealed. He set the letter down with trembling hands, chest rising and falling too fast, as if the very oxygen in the room had turned against him. Eyes darted across the table looking for backup, but found none. Only tight jaws and narrowed gazes. He wasn't the leader anymore. He was the subject of investigation. And I just crossed one leg over the other, still taking notes like this was any other Thursday morning. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. Because this ending had been written weeks ago. All he'd done was open the envelope. He tried to keep reading, but the words wouldn't come. The auditors they've determined that. He paused again. His mouth opened, closed. His lips moved, but the sound caught in his throat like a swallowed bone. And then it happened. Not dramatic, not loud, but unmistakable. He stopped breathing. Just for a moment. A beat too long. His chest tightened, jaw clenched, nostrils flared. He gripped the edge of the conference table like the letter had just reached through the paper and punched him in the sternum. The room went so still. I could hear the tiny mechanical hum of the AC vent overhead. His face was a palette of colors no man wants to wear. First white, then blotchy red, then an ashen blue around the temples. And no one moved to help him. Not Carolyn. Not Singh. Not the junior VP who used to laugh at all his dumb metaphors. They just sat there, motionless, watching the collapse of a man who built his tower out of bravado and buzzwords, now choking on the dust of his own negligence. The letter sat in front of him like a verdict. It was all there: systemic negligence, failure to comply, direct attribution to the CFO's actions, or inaction rather. The investigators had traced every flag, every delay, every procedural breakdown right back to his desk, to his decisions, his inbox, his ego. No scapegoats this time. No intern to throw under the bus. No miscommunication to hide behind. Only the silence of accountability. He looked up one final time, scanning the faces around the table, searching for a lifeline. But the eyes staring back weren't offering handshakes or lifeboats. They were cold, calculating, already recalibrating for a future that didn't include him. Even Tessa had stopped taking notes. I didn't smirk. I didn't nod. I didn't need to. I just watched. Calm. Unmoving. Satisfied in the way only quiet justice can satisfy. Because the truth didn't need a speech. The paper did all the talking. He had built his whole throne on perception, charisma, volume, charm. But in the end, it wasn't a scream that took him down. It was a whisper. A whisper in the form of 27 unread emails, each more urgent than the last. A whisper in the form of one reassigned task at a time. A whisper that became a storm. And now, There was nothing left to do but watch him drown in the silence he once mistook for submission. Turns out, the only joke was letting him think he was untouchable.